Welcome back to class, everyone. Welcome back to the VBC Bible Institute, and welcome back to our course on a journey through the Bible. And I hope that you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, well, you're already way behind. There's a lot of things you're supposed to be doing, but let me remind you of a very important principle. All right. For this journey through the Bible, one of the things that is very important that you do is that you read. So let me say this. The quality of your study of the Bible, as we take this journey through the whole Bible, the quality of your journey through the Scriptures is dependent upon the quantity of your reading. We're journeying through the Bible. We're not taking a journey through what everyone says about the Bible. We're trying to take a journey through the Bible itself. So read. All right. Now, I gave you a booklet to download and start working through that gives you an overview of the Bible and an overview of parts of the Old Testament. Remember, that booklet is available at theologycentral.net, theologycentral.net in the blog section, theologycentral.net in the blog section. Also, we've been listening to Dr. J. Vernon McGee because he's giving us supplemental material to listen to as we work through the Bible. He wrote a booklet called Guidelines. That is available to you at the theologycentral.net, the theologycentral.net blog. And I will be posting his study notes on the book of Genesis, and that too will be available at the theologycentral.net blog. Bottom line is keep checking the blog because material that you need and want will be right there so that you can access it and begin using it for your study. So please be accessing all of that, all right? Wow, we've got a lot to do in this course, in this session. We have a lot to do today in class, and so I hope you are ready. So here's what you need, and I need you to do this. You need to download. In fact, let me grab my iPad right here. Let me grab my iPad. We've got a lot to do. All right, we have a lot to do, so I hope you're going to do everything I ask you to do, because if you don't, you're really going to miss out. I need you to download the Blue Letter Bible app. The Blue Letter Bible app. Please download the Blue Letter Bible app. And the Apple App Store, let me look at it really quick. And the Apple App Store, Blue Letter Bible. Yes, Blue Letter Bible. That's what it's going to be. Blue Letter Bible. It will say Blue Letter Bible In-Depth Study Bible. Please download the Blue Letter Bible app. All right. If you're going to be an active participant, you need that app. We're going to be making reference to that app a lot in this session, because we're getting ready to get into a whole discussion about the meaning of Hebrew terms and Hebrew words. And we're going to have to start figuring this out, because this is really, I remember, Genesis is a book of beginnings. It's a book of origins, right? It gives us the beginning and origin. And I want you to listen to me very carefully. The study of Genesis, starting right there in Genesis chapter 1. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. This is worth your entire all the money you're paying to be, all the money you're paying for your education, which I know you're not paying anything, it's free. But if you were paying $75,000 for this education, what I'm about to say would be worth it. Okay, I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Genesis chapter 1 not only teaches us the origin of everything, it gives us the origin. I mean, it's really the very beginning of something you're going to encounter in your entire study of the Bible and your entire journey of the Bible. And that is this: every verse is contested with countless theories and ideas and interpretations and speculations. All right. Every verse is filled with, for every verse, you're going to find yourself. And anytime you study the Bible, if you're trying to find truth, this is what you're going to find. You're going to read a verse and think, okay, I think I know what it means. And then you're going to hear a sermon going, wait a minute, that's not how I understood that verse. And they're going to go look at, you're going to read a Bible study guide. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not. And you're going to look at commentaries. You're going to go, wait a minute. Every verse is filled, every verse is the source of argument, debate, speculation, and a wide range of interpretations. And you just need to realize Genesis helps you realize this right from the start. Because here in Genesis, we're going to get into arguments about the meaning of Hebrew words. People are going to say, no, that's how you should understand the Hebrew word. And other people are going to say, no, that's how you understand the Hebrew word. And you're going to have to realize that if you're going to take a journey through the Bible, it's a journey through speculation, a wide range of interpretations, and at times that can make you very frustrated. But I've said this before, let me say it again. Do not allow the speculation, the debate, the countless number of interpretations, let that discourage you about people. Let that discourage you about the church. Do not let it discourage you about God's word. All of those interpretations, all of that debate, all of that fighting, that is the product of men. It's not the fault. It's not being produced by the scriptures themselves. It's our approach to the scriptures. And you need to know how to navigate that. You need to know how to work around that. And you learn it in Genesis. In fact, Genesis 1 should be a starting place for all discipleship. Hey, you want to be discipled? We're going to start working on Genesis 1. And they're going to be like, wait a minute, nobody agrees. Wait, there's all of this, and there's this debate, and this dispute, and this argument, and this argument. And you're like, welcome to Christianity. Now, here's the thing. Don't let it discourage you about Christianity. Let it discourage you about Christians. Let it discourage you about everyone approaches the Bible like they're an expert and they think they've got it all figured out. And so you need to realize you've got to be humble and you have to do work. You have to do the work if you want to find the truth. So I think this is very good. And I want to make sure you understand this. I want to stress this. I want to stress this. Do not allow all of the speculation, all of the interpretations to discourage you from God's word. Let it discourage you about people, but not God's word. All of those problems are the result of men. They're not the result of Scripture. But here's another one, very important. Do not let the noise of speculation drown out the voice of revelation. Do not let the noise of speculation drown out the voice of revelation. God's word, each chapter, each verse is speaking to you. It's saying something to you. It's teaching you something. And if you're not careful, you'll miss what the verse is actually saying because of all the speculation surrounding the verse. All right? And we're going to talk about that in great detail, okay? So I just want to make sure when we're going to a chapter, figure out what that chapter is saying. Do not allow all the noise of speculation to drown out the voice of revelation, or you'll get so caught up in the arguing and the debating and the theories and the speculation that when you're done with the chapter, you won't even know what it's about. This is what people do with Genesis 1 all the time. What is Genesis 1 about? Oh, it's about, 6 literal. They're going to argue about the word day. They're going to argue about a gap theory. They're going to argue about all of these theories. And you're like, whoa, slow down. Go read Genesis 1 carefully. What is it actually about? And I'm going to demonstrate that here in just a minute, all right? So I just want to really get you that Genesis 1 is great. Like, we're taking this journey, and as soon as you enter into Genesis 1, this is almost what happens. If you try to, I keep trying to create this word picture. Think of us, we've got our backpacks, we've got our boots, we've got all of our gear, and we're hiking in, and we enter into the land, into this territory of Genesis. And as soon as you enter into Genesis, this is what happens. You start hearing and you're like, what is that noise? I can't hear anything. And it's so loud. You're like, I can't hear. You're plugging your ears and you're like, and as a result, you're not even looking around at this new land that you've entered in. You're not even looking around and you just want to get through it. And then when you get through it, you're like, man, what was that about? I don't know, man. There was this argument. There was all this weird noise and I don't really remember what was there. Don't do that. That's all the noise surrounding Genesis. And so some people, when they get done with Genesis, like, well, it's about this and it's about this. And I think that this is the right way to read it in Genesis. And I think they're wrong. You've missed the point. You've missed the plot. You've missed the central character. All right. So don't allow that to happen. I'm telling you that what I just gave you right there is worth more than any education you'll get anywhere else, because so much of the education you get will get you right there they take you into the noise. They're like, come with us. We're going to walk right into that sound. Now they're going to try to argue that they've got it figured out. But while they're arguing that they've got it figured out, you're all missing the point. You're missing the plot. You're missing you're missing everything. Do not do that. All right. Yes, you can tell that I'm fired up for this session. I am. We've got a lot to talk about. So I hope you are ready. Okay. So let's back up a little bit, right? So we entered into the territory of Genesis. Remember, we're thinking of the land. You know, we've got the land that's broken into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. We've entered into the part of the land that's marked Old Testament. And the first territory we come into is Genesis. We're going to back out. We're going to back out and stop for a second and just remind ourselves of kind of a structure of this territory that we're going into, all right? We're going into the book of Genesis. Let's remind ourselves, very important. The book of Genesis, we said that the territory of Genesis, and I don't remember if we broke it into parts or sections, but I think we broke it into sections, so we're going to go with that. Remember, the land you're looking at, Genesis, 2 major sections. The first major section is 4 major events. 4 major events, and those events are creation, the fall, the flood, and the tower. Sometimes we'll refer to that section, that part, that's sometimes called the tower, sometimes it's called nations. But just remember, Genesis, 2 major sections, and the first one is 4 major events. That's the first major section, and that section has 4 parts, which is creation, fall, flood, and we'll say tower. All right, just remember this, all right? Here's Genesis, 2 major sections, right? And the first section deals with 4 major events: creation, fall, flood, and tower. Creation, fall, flood, and tower. Now, here's what I want to make sure you see this. Creation tells us about what God did. Fall tells us what men did, but how God responded to it. The flood, again, is God doing something. The tower, God is doing something. All 4 of those major events is ultimately about what God did, how God responded, what God declared, what God said, how God acted. All right, just keep that. We want to be God focused. Just keep that in mind. Then, so that's the first major section. First major section goes from Genesis chapter 1 to Genesis chapter 11. Right? It covers over 2,000 years. Some I think say it covers over 3,000 years. All right. But it's 4 major events: creation, fall, flood, and tower. Creation, fall, flood, and tower. It goes from Genesis 1 to Genesis 11. Please remember that. Right? Then the next major section deals with 4 major people, covers about 300 years. And those 4 major people are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. But it's about those 4 people and their relationship and them walking and dealing with God and God working in and through those 4 major people. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. God is still central to the plot, all right? Please get that down. It goes from Genesis 12 to Genesis 50. Again, covers about 300 years, all right? Please get that. 2 major sections. Each section has 4 parts. The first part, 4 major events: creation, fall, flood, and tower. Goes from Genesis 1 to Genesis 11. The second major section, 4 major people: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Goes from Genesis 12 to Genesis chapter 50. Keep that in mind, all right? And remember, this is a book of beginnings, a book of origin. And I know I'm going to find myself getting right back and trying to reteach everything we've already covered, but I just want you to have at least the major structure in mind, all right? Now, we've entered into the book, and the first thing we come to in the book is Genesis chapter 1. That is where we have been. So here's what we're going to do, all right? Make sure you've got the Blue Letter Bible app ready to go. I need you to pay close attention, all right? Now, if we were in class right now, if you were here in front of me, this wasn't being done in a podcast way, I would really you would get tired of what we were getting ready to do, but that's okay. And in fact, I would be challenging you and asking you questions as we do this. I'm not going to be able to really pull that off, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to Genesis chapter 1 be read. And I want you to listen carefully, all right? I want you to listen carefully to Genesis chapter 1. If you're listening to this podcast and you're cleaning the house, you're working, pause it right now and pick up this section when you have a break, when you can stop what you're doing and you can really listen. Because again, the quality of this journey, the quality of this study is dependent upon the quantity of reading. So you need to hear this chapter over and over and over. And the reason we're going to spend so much time with this chapter, I've already said, this chapter is the beginning. It's the origin. It's right there. It's the beginning of all the noise that's going to come through the rest of the Bible, because every verse is contested with ideas and interpretations, and that's going to remain true throughout the rest of the Bible. So you've got to learn to deal with it in Genesis chapter 1. And remember, the key is the noise. Okay, I know I could probably get an actual sound effect, but you get the idea. That noise drowns out the voice of revelation, and you can't allow that to happen. So as you listen to Genesis 1, what is the revelation of Genesis 1? What is it revealing? What is the point? All right, so listen carefully. All right, here we go. Listen, Genesis chapter 1.
The first book of Moses, called Genesis, chapter 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
All right, we're going to do something. Now, I know it may irritate some of you, but that's okay. I'm the teacher. My job is to give you what you need, not what you want. All right, that's what I have to do here, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to Genesis 1 again. And here's what you're supposed to do. Listen to me carefully. Listen, listen, listen. As you listen to Genesis chapter 1 be read again, this is what I want you to focus on. Focus on every time God is mentioned. Write down the verse. Now, you may need to follow along in a Bible. Write down the verse and write down the verse reference. Okay, verse 1. We know verse 1. In the beginning, God, right? Write down Genesis 1:1, God. And then wherever the verse is, write it down and keep track of how many times God is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. How many times? Is it 30? Is it 31? Or is it 32? All right. Those are three options because I've heard all three mentioned. Some say 30, some say 31, some say 32. It shouldn't be that. I don't know why there's different numbers, but you can, you go through, and obviously we're hearing the King James. I'm looking at the King James. So if you're using a different translation, you may have a different number. I haven't checked all the translations to see, but we're using the King James, obviously, in this Bible Institute. So you may want to be looking at that. How many times is God mentioned in Genesis chapter 1? Remember, do not let the noise of speculation drown out the voice of revelation. Do not let the noise of speculation drown out the voice of revelation. When you come to Genesis and all you hear is and everyone's arguing about all kinds of issues. But what is being revealed here? I'm going to argue what's being revealed. The revelation in Genesis 1 is God. It's teaching you about God. When you're done with Genesis 1, as we walk through the territory and I say, hey, what did you learn in Genesis 1? You learned this about God. Remember, you were supposed to go through and write down, God did this and God did this. That I'm going to stress this point over and over and over again. And one of the ways we can see what this chapter is about is the fact that God is mentioned over and over and over again. How many times? Listen, keep track, write down every reference, right? Here we go. I think you're going to see God is mentioned in almost every verse, okay? Listen carefully. Here we go. One more time.
The first book of Moses, called Genesis, chapter 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
There you have it. That's the second time through Genesis. Now, I know, listen, you probably found yourself trying to listen to that, and your mind starts drifting. Your mind starts. Now, you were supposed to be doing something. You're supposed to be going through it. How many times was God mentioned? Was it 30? Was it 31? Or was it 32? Feel free to email me your answer at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I have been emphasizing this over and over and over and over again. And I want you to get this down because this is a key principle. What we have a tendency to do in Genesis is God is the central character here. This is a chapter about God, and we remove God. We push God out of being the central figure and the central character in Genesis 1, and we insert our reason, our theories, and our speculation as being the dominant focus of the chapter. Do not push God out of Genesis 1 and insert your speculation and your ideas, and basically you're inserting yourself as being the central issue of the text. God is the central issue of the text. In the beginning, God, and then God is mentioned over and over and over and over and over again. So let me repeat your assignment if you have not done it. You need to go through every verse in Genesis 1, and on paper, you need to write down I'll give you an example. Genesis 1:1, God. What is God doing in Genesis 1:1? He is creating the heavens and the earth. And then write a summary statement, a summary sentence. What does that teach you about God? Well, here's a simple one. It teaches me that God is all powerful because he created everything. Right? Or you could write down, it teaches me God is creator, so everything finds its purpose in him. You can write down something it teaches you about God. Go through and identify everything God is doing. You're already supposed to have done it. I've already taught it to you, but I want to just stress this over and over. Genesis 1 is going to set up your mentality of how you're going to approach the rest of the scripture. And if you start Genesis 1 by placing you as central and you're removing God, and what you're going to turn Genesis 1 is an opportunity to argue and debate about every wild-eyed speculative theory you can come up with, you're not approaching the Bible in the correct way. God is the focus in that chapter. Do not miss that. All right, now, let's go to Genesis chapter 1. Right, I'm really trying to take a lot of things that we've done and bring it all together in this one, okay? Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. All right, the first day. Now, we spent some considerable time on the word day because this becomes one of those, theories, these ideas that everyone starts debating and arguing about. Now, you've got to keep God the focus. You've got to keep God the focus. Do not let God, the revelation of God, be missed because of all of the noise of arguing about the word day. However, you have to at least deal with the controversy. Just don't allow the controversy to drown out the revelation. Don't let the noise of the controversy drown out the voice of revelation. And what is the voice of revelation in Genesis chapter 1? Everyone should say it with me, class. God. That is the revelation of Genesis 1. God. He existed. He was there in the beginning. He spoke. He created. He saw. He made all the things Genesis 1. He commanded. He gave commands. All the different things he does in Genesis 1. We went through all of them. If you do not have that down, then you're not ready to go to Genesis 2. It's that simple. All right. But we do have this argument over the word day. All right. Now, I told everyone to get the Blue Letter Bible, right? Well, if you want, you can open the Blue Letter Bible app on your device. I told everyone to have it ready to go. All right. Go to Genesis chapter 1. And look at verse 4. All right, tap on verse 4. You bring up the interlinear. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created. Well, let's go back. I'm in Genesis 2, so I apologize. I'm in Genesis. There's Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to go to verse 5. All right, Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. Hang on, I'm in the book of Revelation. Here we go. Genesis 1:5, interlinear. Genesis 1:5, interlinear. All right, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now, the word day, all right? Let's pull up the word day. What is the word day?
Strong's H3117. Yom. Yom.
The word is yom, and we talked about this. Now, here's what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to look up the word day, right? Find every place the word day occurred from the book of Genesis to the book of Deuteronomy, and you were to write down how the word day was being used. Was it being used in a normal sense of a 24-hour day, the way you always understand the word day, or was it being used to refer to some, undisclosed amount of time, which we'll never know? Well, I think what we discovered, if you look at the meaning of the word yom, if you look at it, you look at how it's used, you look at the fact that it's got the morning and the evening, it's got first day, second day. If you go to the book of Exodus and how the Ten Commandments kind of refers to those days, you kind of come up with the idea that the word day here is referring to a literal 24-hour day. But you were to trace the use of that word from Genesis all the way to Deuteronomy. Why? We believe in Mosaic authorship. You are to determine how the word is used. If you did not do that, then guess what? If you're not willing to put in that kind of work, then you're not prepared to take a journey through the Bible. Because the only way to resolve these conflicts and the only way to reduce the volume, listen, the only way to reduce the volume of speculation so that you can hear the voice of revelation is by spending considerable amount of time doing observation. All right? The only way to reduce the volume of speculation so that you can hear the voice of revelation is spending considerable time doing the work of observation. Let me give you an example. We have all this speculation going on in Genesis 1, arguing about day and time and all the different issues that come up. What did we do? I said, stop. Let's listen to the voice of revelation. And how did we do that? By doing observation. What did we observe? God is mentioned 30, 31, 32 times. I'm letting you figure that out. God is mentioned over and over and over and over again in Genesis 1, which declares what? It lets you hear the voice of revelation. Genesis 1 is about God, right? You start with God. Everything begins with God. And here's what we learn about God, right? And God is going to become central to obviously the rest of the Bible. So how did we turn down the volume of speculation so that we could hear the voice of revelation? By spending considerable time doing observation. We observed what was actually in the text, which allowed us to hear the voice of revelation. If you don't do that, you'll spend all of your time trying to observe all of the arguments that's coming from the noise of speculation. Do not do that. Right? So when it comes to day, you can get into all the arguments about day, or you can just say, stop, time out, time out, time out. I'm going to go do some observation. I'm going to start in Genesis. I'm going to go all the way through the first 5 books of the Old Testament, since they're written by Moses. So same human author. How does he typically use the word day? Come up with the total number of times the word day is used, right? See if the Hebrew word is translated in other ways. In fact, if you'll look at your Blue Letter Bible app, you'll notice this. I'm trying to hurry here because we got a lot to cover, but I'm trying to put this all together. It is used 2,287 times. Now, that's through the whole Old Testament. 2,287 times. It's translated day, time, chronicle, daily. It's translated all kinds of different ways, But you go and look at how the word day is used in the first 5 books and see what you discover. And why am I telling you to go do it? Because that's you observing. If you do the observation, then the noise of speculation is turned down in your mind, and then you can hear the voice of revelation. If I just tell you what we discover, that's not the same thing. That's not you taking a journey through the Bible. That's you letting me take the journey through the Bible, and you're sitting back watching, like on the Discovery Channel, going, wow, look at them taking that journey through those mountains. No, you're supposed to be in the group. You're supposed to be with us in the journey. So that's why you have to do that. All right, now, so there we have it. We know what the chapter is about. It's about God. You're supposed to have determined everything God does in that chapter and write a summary statement of what it teaches you. You're supposed to track the use of the word day through the entire book of Genesis and the rest of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. There you'll get an idea of what the word day means. Now, here is the next thing we need to deal with. And we have... All right, we're going to try to finish this whole thing at the top of the, at the hour mark, but it may go a little longer. But that's okay, because I'm trying to put this all together so that you really get something but by the time we leave this chapter. So are you ready? Here is the thing we have to deal with. Many believe that between Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, there is a gap of an undisclosed amount of time. It could be billions of years. But something happened between Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 on the creation. In other words, God created everything in Genesis 1:1, and then that creation, something happens, some kind of cataclysmic judgment that brought about a cataclysmic destruction on creation. And so as a result of this judgment, and as a result of this destruction, we find that the creation was made, right? It turned into being an earth that was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. But all of that is a result of something that happened in that gap. Now, here is more speculation, because you're now creating a theory that doesn't even come from the actual words of Revelation, but it comes in the space in between 2 verses. And we say, and not only is it a space, it is a space supposedly filled with millions of years and an actual cataclysmic judgment upon some living things that lived upon and in the creation. So you not only have sin, you not only have judgment, you have destruction and death all occurring in a gap that you don't even read about. That's speculation. So that speculation gets so loud that people will argue. In fact, one of the Bible institutes I went to, we spent an entire semester on the gap theory. The whole semester. We're supposed to be in Genesis, and we spent the entire semester dealing with the gap theory. You talk about by the end of that, guess what I thought Genesis 1 was about? It was a chapter to argue against the gap theory, or it was a chapter promoting the gap theory. But guess what I missed? I missed that God was what Genesis 1 is about. Why? The speculation drowned out the voice of revelation, and I spent all of my time trying to come up with observations to deal with the gap theory instead of spending all of my time observing what the revelation actually showed me. God. You see why I'm doing this? There is a method to my madness, all right? So we've got to look at the gap theory. Are you ready? We're going to go through this as quickly as possible, all right? The gap theory. It kind of states this, that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, God created a perfect and complete universe. Between Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, some say Satan rebelled, and this marred the perfect universe. All right? Some will say Satan may have been involved. There was all kinds of things living on the earth, and everything was destroyed. Some will say that there was a full-blown creation. There were animals, creatures. Some may even say there were people. And that's where we get the fossil record from. The fossil record comes from between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, and this destruction that occurred. All right. But so something happens, Satan rebels, there's some kind of judgment, and the whole universe is marred. The whole universe is destroyed. It is without form, or not. It's marred. There's destruction. It's not completely destroyed. I guess the face of it is destroyed because it's now without form and void, and there's darkness. And according to the gap theory, starting then after Genesis 1:2, or starting in Genesis 1:2, God now begins to remold and recreate. So in other words, Genesis 1:1 is the original creation. Genesis 1:2 and following is the recreation. He's now remaking everything. So you can't say that the first creation was done in 6 literal 24-hour days. No, the recreation took time. The first creation was just, boom, God created everything. And we don't know when the first creation occurred. Trillions of years ago. And of course, you see why this theory is so popular. Hey, scientists say everything is billions of years old. Well, that's fine. It happened between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. There's an undisclosed amount of time. You just put the time there and, boom, there's the fossil record. There's everything. It's all right there. And then Genesis 1:2 is the recreation of everything. And the recreation happened in 6 literal 24-hour days. So now you get the best of both worlds. That's what it attempts to do. But again, what does the revelation say? What does the revelation say? Now, again, we're getting ready to hear the noise of speculation, and we're going to try to drown it out through the work of observation so that we can hear the voice of revelation. I'm going to keep saying that phrase over and over and over again because I think it's worth, the price of your education here, right? So that's kind of the meaning of what we say the gap theory. Now, the popularity, or when did this theory kind of arise? Well, it was made popular and well-known by 2 men. George H. Pember, P-E-M-B-E-R. George H. Pember, P-E-M-B-E-R. That's George H. Pember, P-E-M-B-E-R, in the year around 1876. In the year 1876. All right, George H. Pember. Now, the second individual is, to me, the one who really made it famous. C.I. Scofield in 1917. C.I. Scofield in 1917. C.I. Scofield in 1917. Why do I want you to know this? I want you, if you forget Pember, that's okay. Do not forget Scofield. And here's the reason why. The Scofield Study Bible, or the Scofield Reference Bible. The Scofield Reference Bible, Study Bible, in his notes on Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, he articulates the gap theory. And in one of the Bible institutes I went, we spent however long the semester was, we spent the entire semester working through those notes that Scofield wrote and then trying to argue whether they were right or whether they were true. Now, it was a great exercise, and I'm so grateful that I did that. The problem was, again, when it was over, and it was a course in Genesis, I didn't get Genesis chapter 1 being a revelation of God, because we didn't spend time observing the text. We spent time dealing with the noise of speculation. And since we spent so much time with the noise of speculation, we missed the voice of revelation. All right? So you have to observe what the chapter is about. It is about God. But we have to deal with this speculation, because if we can get the volume turned down, hopefully we will hear the voice of revelation. Very important. But those are the men. If you can find a copy of the Scofield Reference Bible, if you can find a copy of it, if you own a copy of it, I cannot find my copy. I don't know where my copy is, so I need to purchase another one. But if you have a Scofield Reference Bible, if you could take a photograph of the notes on Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 and email them to me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, I would be forever indebted to you. All right. I would be very grateful. I don't know where my Scofield Reference Bible is. I cannot find it. It's gone. But I utilize that a million times for that purpose. Yes, I'm like, okay, here's the gap theory. Here's what it teaches. And so if you have that, that would be great. All right. So that's where it comes from. Now, here's where we're going to kind of work through some of the arguments for the gap theory. All right. Here is what they seem to indicate. This is what they claim. Here's their claim. Without form and void always indicates judgment. Without form and void always indicates judgment. That is their claim. Whenever you read the words without form and void, that it always indicates judgment. All right. Now, is that completely true? Well, some will argue. Let's look here. Let me look here. Let's go to, I think, now this is the top of my head, so I'm not going to tell you to look here. No, I don't think that one is that one is not very helpful. So I've got the wrong reference written down. Or I don't have it written down. I'm trying to memorize it. I'm trying to pull from memory. Let me go to another one, I think. I think there's one here. Give me a second. Yeah, that's not very helpful. Let's do this. We got the Blue Letter Bible app, right? Let's go back to Genesis 1. Let's go here. And the earth was without form and void, all right? So let's pull up the interlinear. The earth was without form, okay? The word here is
Strong's H8414. Tohu. Tohu.
Right? It's tohu. It's tohu. It means formlessness. Right? Can it mean formlessness? It can mean confusion. It can mean unreality. It can mean emptiness, formlessness of primeval earth, nothingness, empty space, that which is empty or unreal of idols, wasteland, wilderness of solitary places, place of chaos, place of vanity. The King James translates it 20 times, and it translates it vain, vanity, confusion, without form, wilderness, not, nothing, empty, place, and waste. All right? So what they argue, the gap theory argues, is they come along and say, look, wait a minute. God created everything, and it's without form, right? It's without form. Well, if it's without form, that means it's been destroyed, that it's been made empty. Or could it just simply describe that God created everything and immediately it was without form, that its initial form was empty. There was nothing there. Is that possible that it's not necessarily referring to a destruction? But I'll make this argument. I'll do it this way. Even if you try to make the argument, hey, here, this word seems to carry this idea. Okay, wait. So you're telling me that what Genesis 1 is trying to tell me is that God created everything was destroyed, and everything was recreated, and it's trying to tell me that by me speculating what happened in between two verses where there is no revelation. I do not develop doctrine on the spaces between verses. I develop doctrine between the verses. Even if I'm like, okay, God created everything, it was without form. Okay, well, that could mean emptiness. That could mean destruction, but that doesn't really, I can't draw that conclusion just from the meaning of that word, because the word can just simply mean empty or wilderness, that it was just there. There was nothing there yet. The earth was there, but there was nothing in it because nothing had been created. So it's without form. It's void. It's missing. It's empty of something. So I don't think that it always has to refer to some kind of cataclysmic judgment. All right. Again, and see the different ways that it's used. It can be used like he found him in a desert land in the waste, howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. All right. That's Deuteronomy 32:10. Maybe that's the one I was actually looking for. Yeah. So let me read that again. He found him in a desert land and in the waste, howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. Well, that doesn't seem to be about destruction. He found him in a wasteland, found him in a place where there was, in the middle of nowhere kind of idea. All right. See, what else do we have here? Job 26:7, he stretcheth out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. All right. So it can just be the idea that there's nothing there. It can just be the idea that it is empty. It doesn't have to mean that it's a result of destruction. I mean, obviously Job 26:7 is not saying that. He stretched out the north over the empty place and he hangeth the earth upon nothing. Right? It's not he didn't hang it because of destruction. It's just nothing. It's without form. It's void. It's empty. All right. Psalm 107. He poureth contempt upon princes and causeth them to wander in the wilderness. Now you there have a judgment kind of being connected, but it's the idea of wandering in a place where there is nothing. That seems to be the idea. Again, let me go back through the different ways it's used. It can be formlessness, emptiness, nothingness, empty space. That's what it's just simply God created, and then there was nothing there until he now started the process of shaping and filling and placing something there. It doesn't have to mean it got that way by destruction, all right? So just keep that idea there. So without form, Let's go with the idea of void. All right, hang on. Verse 2. Pull up the interlinear. All right, there's without form. Void is this Hebrew word. Void is this Hebrew word.
Strong's H922. Bohu. Bohu.
Bohu means void or emptiness. Void or emptiness. It's translated 3 times. Void 2 times, emptiness once. So again, it's just, there's nothing there. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth there was nothing there. Nothing had been created to be in it, on it. Nothing had grown. Nothing. All the things that come about after that explains how it went from without form and void to having shape. It was something was made, but not yet completed because the creation process wasn't over. They want to translate it that, hey, it was without form and void, and the reason it was is because judgment made it that way. Or God created everything, and now the process of filling it is about to occur. I don't know why you have to infer that that's because of judgment. So just keep that in mind, all right? So that's the argument for the gap theory, is that without form and void always indicates judgment. That's their argument, and we looked at some verses that seem to argue against that, all right? Number 2, look at Genesis 1:2. Let me pull up my Bible here. Genesis 1:2. Sorry, I'm trying to reach over. I got books everywhere, so you got to bear with me. And the earth was without form and void. And the earth was. The second argument for the gap theory is the word was. They want to make a big argument about the word was. So the first argument is without form and void, they argue always indicates judgment, and I will argue it just indicates that it was empty, that there was nothing placed there yet, all right? So that's my argument against. The second argument for the gap theory is the word was. They argue it should be translated became. It became. That is their argument, all right? Let's look at it again. So this is how they would translate Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2. And the earth became without form and void. It became that way. So then the issue is, if that's the way you translate it, it became that way. Why did it become that way? It became that way because of a judgment that we don't read about in the actual text. So they're going to, again, please know what they're doing. They're taking something that's not there and turning up the volume of what's not there to drown out the voice of what is there. Be very careful. Now, this is why this is so important in Genesis, because this is going to give you skills that you need throughout the rest of the Bible. That's why we're working on this, okay? So we've got to try to figure out the word was there, right? So let's go back to the interlinear. And the earth was without form and void. Let's go to verse 2, interlinear. Was. What is the Hebrew word for was? All right? It is
Strong's H1961. Hayah. Hayah.
Hayah. Hayah. Well, Hayah is used 75 times. All right. It's used in the following manner: was, it was, came, come to pass, came, has been, were, happened, become, pertained, better for thee. All right. The Blue Letter Bible app gives us the outline of biblical usage. It can be to be, become, come to pass, exist, happen, fall out, to come into being, become, to arise, to become, to be, to exist, to be in existence, to abide, remain. And they go through all the different ways. It's used 75 times. You could go through all the 75 different ways that it is used. But that's their argument. Was should be translated became. All right? This is, according to one source, the Hebrew word here, hayah, is almost always translated was. It is used 264 times in the Pentateuch. Of these, it is translated was 258 times. So they think it should be translated became, and they're arguing, well, how is the word used in the Pentateuch? Remember, that's how we did the word day. So I could challenge you. You got to go through 200 and what is it? How many references again? 264 in the Pentateuch. You would have to go through 264 references and go, how is the word typically translated? And if it's almost always translated was and not became, there you have it. There's something else we could do. Here's something we could do. I'm very interested in this. Haven't even thought about it, but let's go to it really quick. Let's go to Genesis 1:2. I'm very interested here. I'm going to BibleHub.com. All right. Now, they argue it should be translated became, right? That's their argument. They believe was should be translated became. All right. Now let's see if any other translation agrees with them. New International Version. Now the earth was formless and empty. New Living Translation. The earth was formless and empty. ESV. The earth was without form and void. The Berean Study Bible. Now the earth was formless and void. The New American Standard. The earth was formless and void. The New King James. The earth was without form and void. King James Bible, the earth was without form and void. The Christian Standard Bible, now the earth was formless and empty. Contemporary English Bible, the earth was barren. The Good News Translation, the earth was formless. Holman, a Christian Standard Bible, now the earth was formless and empty. International Standard Bible, the earth was yet unformed and desolate. Please note how that's the International Standard Bible. Now, when the earth was yet unformed and desolate. There you go. It was yet unformed and desolate. That's a good way of putting it. That's just the way it was. God created the heavens and the earth, and they were yet unformed and desolate. Net Bible. Now the earth was without shape and empty. The New Heart English Bible. Now the earth was formless and empty. The God's Word Translation. The earth was formless and empty. I don't even know what that is. Now the earth was unformed and void. The New American Standard 1977. And the earth was formless and void. The King James 2000 Bible. And the earth was without form and void. The American King James Version. And the earth was without form and void. The American Standard. And the earth was. The Brenton Septuagint Translation. But the earth was unsightly and unfurnished. The Dewey Reams Bible. And the earth was void and empty. Please note, I don't think there's an English translation on the planet that translates it. Let me read it to you. And in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And again, this is the translation the gap theory says we should go with. And the earth became without form and void. Not one English translation translates it that way. Not one. But hey, the gap theory, they know better than everyone. They know better than everyone. Why? Because, well, it is possible that the word was can be translated became. It's possible, but just because it's possible doesn't mean that's the way it goes. Why? So everyone got it wrong except for the gap theory people. Again, you've got to turn down the noise of speculation with revelation. Right? So again, what can you do? The word hayah is almost always translated was. It is used 264 times in the Pentateuch. Of these, it's translated was 258 times. So here's what we're discovering. In Genesis 1, here's what the speculation turns into. Hey, that word day, well, it can be translated a longer period of time. So we're going to go with what it can be, and we're going to force that understanding on the translation of the word, even though the word is typically used to refer to a typical 24-hour day, especially when you have evening and morning and a numerical, a numerical value given to it, first day, second day. That's how it's almost always used. And if you look at the way the word day is used throughout the rest of Genesis and the rest of the Pentateuch, you're going to come up with the idea that it's almost always used as a 24-hour period. No, we're going to go against all of that and go with, well, sometimes it can be. That's not the way you do things. But you've got to learn these skills in Genesis, right? How do you turn down the speculation so that you can hear the voice of revelation? By doing the work of observation. And then you can go, wait, no. Let's look at what's actually there. I've tried to teach my church that over and over, and I know sometimes they hate it at my church. All right, we've got a problem in this text. Some people think this is the way we should understand it. Okay, how many times is the word used? 3,000 times. We're going to spend the next 6 months as a church looking up every single reference. Now, people hate when I do that because nobody wants to come to church hour after hour going, okay, we got 2,000 more references to work through. I know it's tedious and I know it's boring, but guess what? When you're done, you've observed how the word was actually used. You don't have some preacher telling you. And that's the only way you're ever going to turn down the noise of speculation. You've got to do the work of observation. Then you'll hear the voice of revelation. Right? So what are the arguments for the gap theory? Number one, the words without form and void always indicate judgment. Right? And no, they just indicate that things were empty. They were unfilled. That's just the way it was. Right? And we talked about it can simply refer to lifelessness and an empty space. There was no life yet on it. It was empty. It was just void. There was nothing there. Second, the gap theory argues should be translated became. We have looked at that and realized that that's not the case. Next, they argue that there is a difference between two Hebrew words in Genesis chapter 1. All right? Let's look at it. They argue, let me go back to the Blue Letter Bible, and that's why I want you so that you can be doing this as well. They believe that there is a difference between two Hebrew words used in Genesis chapter 1. They believe, and I keep turning away from the mic, I apologize. Look at Genesis 1:21. Genesis 1:21. Bring up the interlinear. Genesis 1:21, we have this Hebrew word, right?
Strong's H 1254. Bara. Bara.
All right, bara, I cannot roll my R's. I apologize. I know I grew up in Texas. I can't do it, all right? Bara, all right? Now, that's one of the words used in Genesis, bara. Now, if you'll note how that word is translated in Genesis chapter 1, verse 21, it's translated, and God created, bara. He created great wells. Great wells. You see that in Genesis 1:21, and God created, bara. Okay, keep that in mind. They argue that word, bara, is different than the word used in verse 25. And the verse 25, let me pull up the interlinear, and we have this Hebrew word.
Strong's H 6213. Asa. Asa.
Asa. Asa. And Asa is translated, and God made the beast of the earth. So they argue that there's the word create and there is the word translated made. Create and made. And the gap theory argues there's a difference between these two words, right? They believe that there is a difference between bara and asa. They believe there's a difference. Now, listen, this is very important. These words are used interchangeably. These words are used interchangeably. Look at Genesis 1:21. God created the great sea monsters. Verse 25, God made the beast of the earth. Verse 26, let us make asa man. And verse 27, and so God created bara man. The words are used interchangeably. They're used interchangeably. So this is how it will be explained. Hey, in Genesis 1:1, God bara, he created. But when you get after Genesis 1:1, the word asa is used because he made. He's not creating now. He's making because all the original stuff was created. So he's just now taking what was already made and reshaping it, remolding it, and reforming it, and recreating what was. No, the words are used interchangeably. Again, and I'll just show you really quick. Genesis 1, and so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. All right. Look at verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image. Well, he's making man in his image. He's creating something that's new. He's creating men. Now, some will say, well, he took something that was already made, so did he make them or did he create them? Well, the words are used interchangeably. He creates and he makes. The words are used interchangeably to speak of God's creating something. So they try to make a big issue with this. Hey, in the beginning, he created. Then the rest of it he made based off what was already there. But the words are used interchangeably. They're used interchangeably. Just keep that in mind. All right? Okay? I don't see why that's an issue, but I'm going through all the arguments. Some of their arguments don't even make any sense to me. So here we go. Here are the arguments for the gap theory. First, without form and void always indicates judgment. What we demonstrated is that is not true, that it can simply refer to something being lifeless and empty. And that's what after God created everything, it was lifeless and empty because no life had been created, nothing had been made. They argue the word was in Genesis 1:2 should be translated became, and we demonstrated that haya is almost always translated was. It's used 264 times in the Pentateuch. Of these, it is translated was 258 times. We looked at every English translation we could find on earth, and Genesis 1:2 is always translated was. They argue there's a difference between bara and asa, and we demonstrated that those words seem to be used interchangeably. All right, next. I'm going to go through these last two quickly. They indicate the word darkness indicates judgment. Okay, darkness was upon the face of the deep in Genesis 1:2. They say that always indicates judgment. Darkness here is simply the absence of light and is sometimes spoken of as being good. Now there's one source that I have here. They give a scripture reference. I don't know if this is true. Let me look here. I'm going to verify this. All right. It speaks of here in Genesis and Psalm 104:20. It doesn't really say the word good, but this is what it says. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. In other words, it's demonstrating God made darkness. And if he made darkness, it doesn't mean it always has to refer to judgment, right? Especially, for you to say darkness here refers to judgment, you have to infer, you have to base that off your presupposition that a judgment has already occurred. I could read it and say that darkness there is not referring to judgment. It's just referring to the absence of light. That's all it is. I don't even know how that's an argument. You have to presuppose a judgment occurred, and then you read darkness to say, well, that shows you a judgment occurred because darkness refers to a judgment. Well, because you're presupposing one already happened. So you're, again, turning up the volume of your speculation till you're drowning out the actual words of revelation. And then the last one. This is the one that you hear the most about someone in the gap theory. The word replenish in Genesis 1:28 indicates the world was once filled. All right? All right? So they say the word replenish. Let's go back to the Blue Letter Bible app. Genesis 1:28. Pull it up here, interlinear. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish. Right? Replenish. Let's look at the word.
Strong's H 4390. Malah.
All right. Now,
Second entry.
okay.
Malay.
So Malah, right? There's two entries for the word. Okay. Now here's important. The gap theory comes along and says, hey, look, God created the earth, and then everything was wiped out. Everything that was on the earth, everything that was there, all the creatures, everything, they all died. They were all destroyed because of this cataclysmic judgment. So in Genesis, now when God is recreating everything, he tells Adam and he tells, to go replenish the earth, go refill the earth. So they believe that should be understood to be refill what was once full. It was full, it was emptied because of destruction. Now you go refill it. That's their argument. Right? However, the Hebrew word almost always means simply to fill. It simply means to fill something that is empty. It's empty, now go fill it. Right? Now, here's the thing. Right? The King James does put the word replenish, I know, But the word can this is how it's used: to fill, to be full. All right, to consecrate, to fill the land, to be filled, to be armed, to be satisfied, to be accomplished, to fill, to satisfy. It's used 249 times. 107 times it's simply translated as fill. Go fill it. That's what it means. But the King James says replenish. Now here, I'm very interested. Let's do something. Remember, they argued about was should be became. Now they're arguing replenish means to refill. Let's do something here. Genesis 1:27. Let's see. I'm just interested in how the other translations. Is it 27? No, 28. Verse 28. I apologize. Genesis 1:28. All right. This is how the word is used, or this is how it's translated over and over and over again. Genesis 1:28, New International Version. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth. New Living Translation, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. ESV, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. So, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. So now here, this is hilarious, okay? The King James says replenish. The King James is the only one that says replenish. The rest say fill. All right, so here's what they do. Please note that this is why speculation makes me angry. All right, here's someone who comes up with this gap theory. All right, hey, we've got scientists are saying there's billions of years, and we've got to find a place for these billions of years. So where do we put the billions of years? We put the billions of years between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, and that space between verses where there's no words. And we're going to put all this there where we have no revelation, but we're going to put it there as a form of speculation that then we act like is revelation, all right, which is just so dishonest and so messed up. Okay, but all right. So here's this theory. There's this big cataclysmic judgment. All right, now how are we going to make our argument? Well, the first argument is when it says and the earth was without form and void, well, that shouldn't be translated was. That should be translated became. Why? Because sometimes was can be translated became. All right. But knowing English translation on the face of the planet Earth translates it that way in Genesis 1:2. They all say was. And overwhelmingly, the word that Hebrew word is always translated was in the Pentateuch. Hey, that doesn't matter. It should be became. We're right. Then you get to Genesis 1:28, where he says, hey, be fruitful and multiply and go replenish the earth or fill the earth. They're like, hey, we should go with the idea of replenish. We should go with that idea because that's the right way because it means to refill. And you look and you go, well, the word just means to fill. It doesn't have to mean that it's filling something that was once full. Just go fill it. Why are you going to fill it? Because it's been empty. It was without form and void. But no. It was full and it got destroyed and now we got to go refill it. So we're going to go with the idea replenish. But in that particular case, no translation goes with the idea of replenish. It goes with the idea of fill. But they're going to go against that again. So they just come up with some little possibility and they turn the possibility into the rule. And then the speculation then drowns out the voice of God's revelation. So there are the arguments for the gap theory, and there are the counter arguments. I could go into far more detail about this. Right here, I have in my hand a very big book. It's called The Genesis Record by Henry M. Morris. Now, even if you disagree with everything in it, at least read what they have to say about the gap theory. There's a lot of pages about the gap theory, and they will show you and tell you that it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And here is the one thing I want to stress, and I'll end with this. I will open up the Genesis record for this one point. I think it's important. All right? Here we go. The gap theory This is on page 47 of the Genesis record. The gap theory is not only impossible scientifically, but also destructive theologically. By accepting the geological age system, the Bible scholar is thereby accepting the fossil record, which identifies these ages. Fossils, however, are dead things. They speak clearly of a world in which suffering, disease, and death, often violent, widespread death, were universal realities. They speak of a world much like our own world, a world containing sharks and jellyfish, dragonflies, cockroaches, turtles, crocodiles, bats, beavers, as well as dinosaurs, and et cetera, and other animals that are now extinct. But the world that then was, perished, 2 Peter 3:16. It was the world existed, if that world existed prior to the supposed pre-Adamic cataclysm, then it existed before the sin of Satan, which brought on the cataclysm. That is, suffering and death existed for 1 billion years before the sin of Satan and the subsequent sin of Adam. The Bible says, however, that death came into the world only when Adam brought sin into the world. Romans 5:12, 1 Corinthians 15:21. All right. Now, let me make this very clear. Any speculation you have on origins, whether if you were going to try theistic evolution, whether you're going to try gap theory, whatever you're going to try, you cannot. This is biblical, theological. This is absolutely imperative theologically and biblically. You cannot have in any way, shape, or form sin and death occurring before the sin of Adam, because it was through Adam that sin was brought into the world, and therefore all men die because all men have sinned. All men are guilty of sin and Adam. The fall of Adam is what brought the cataclysmic judgment upon the earth. The whole creation was corrupted. And then ultimately you have a cataclysmic judgment that occurs in Genesis 6, the global flood. But sin entered into the world and all of creation was corrupted. All of creation changed. Look at all the things that happened as a result of the fall. You can't have, there was a cataclysmic judgment. There was death and destruction before Adam and Eve was even created. Well, then Adam didn't bring sin into the world. Sin existed in the world because remember, the world was already created, and then that creation is marred, and you have a remaking, a reorganizing, a reshaping of the creation. So are you saying that Adam brought sin into the second creation or the first creation? Well, you can't even read it theologically. It becomes so broken. So the gap theory is messed up, not only because it's misrepresenting the meaning of words, and that's why we needed the Blue Letter Bible app to look up what they're claiming. Not only do they go for, hey, we're going to go with the minority reading of these words. Hey, was should be become or became. And sometimes it can be translated that way. And you're like, yeah, but it's not typically translated that way. And not one English translation on earth translates it that way. That's okay. We're right. Go with our translation. Hey, the King James uses the word replenish. We're going to go with the King James. Yeah, but no other translation uses the word replenish. And that word that's translated replenish just means to fill. Well, yeah, they got to refill it. Oh, so you think it should be translated? Okay, whatever. And please note, that's all speculation. Speculation. So I want you to see this. Here's what's happened. Listen to me carefully. Are you ready? All right. Here is the $1 million I'm going to hand you, because what I'm about to hand you is worth $1 million. All right. Are you ready? Listen to me carefully. Here's what's happened. God gave us a revelation in Genesis 1, and that revelation is about him. And this is what some people have done. They have pushed God out of Genesis 1. Hey, God, you got to step aside, because what we're going to do is we're going to insert an entire cataclysmic judgment and millions of years into a space in between Genesis 1 and 2, and we're going to build an entire system based off something that's not actually there. So in other words, we're going to actually add something into a space between verses that is nothing but wild-eyed speculation. And we do that, and that inserting it into the text literally then pushes the revelation of God out of the text so that we miss God and we have to start learning. Wait, there was a cataclysmic judgment here? Oh, I wonder what happened. Oh, I wonder. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, you're missing the point of Genesis 1. Genesis 1 is not trying to tell you about some pre-Adamic judgment that happened on the earth. It's trying to tell you about God creating everything in Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. It's trying to give you the creation of everything and that God is the one who did it. It's not trying to turn it into a chapter. Oh, he created it once, all got destroyed, and he recreated it. That's not what the chapter is about. But this is what we do. We insert ourselves and our speculation and our theories into the text, and we will even insert it where there isn't a text. Please note, the gap theory inserts itself where there is literally no words, where there's a gap between two verses, and like that's where it happened. Even though the text doesn't say anything about it, that's where it happened. If you can start the book of Genesis by inserting an entire interpretive theory into a place where there's actually no words in the text, let me tell you, you're done. You're never going to interpret the Bible correctly because you can insert anything there. And men have proven for 2,000 years that we feel that we can insert whatever we want into the text. The gap theory the reason it should be studied, and the reason is because it gives you your first hermeneutical test. The word day and the gap theory. That becomes your first hermeneutical test that will determine how you're going to journey through the rest of the Bible. That's why you have to do that work on those two theories. Okay, the word day means undisclosed amount of time, so he didn't create everything in 6 literal 24-hour days. It was 6 billion years. Okay, so the word day can just mean, you don't even know how long it means, just any amount of time you want to throw into it. Yeah, okay. Now, I got to go study the word day. Why? Because I got to turn down the noise of speculation so I can hear the voice of revelation by doing observation. The word day, morning, evening, first day, I think that kind of means day. And that's the way it's kind of used throughout Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So why did it change so drastically? It starts off meaning an undisclosed amount of time, and then immediately it becomes about a certain amount of time. And I'm supposed to just go reinterpret Genesis 1-2 based off how it's never used the rest of the Pentateuch. Like what? Wait, there's a gap there, and you're going to tell me that it's based off. Well, you're inserting meaning into Hebrew words that don't really seem to carry out that way of thinking the rest of the book of Genesis or the rest of the Old Testament. Please note what's happening. We are inserting ourselves into the text. We are supposed to pull things from the text that are there. We're not supposed to be putting things into the text. Do not do that. So let me say it again. Please do not allow the noise of speculation drown out the voice of revelation. Revelation in Genesis is that here's a chapter about God. You have a job to do to see that. How many times is God mentioned in Genesis 1? What does it say about God? What do you learn about God? Write a summary statement about what you learn about God in each time that he's mentioned in Genesis 1. Look at the word day. Go do some observation on the word day. The gap theory. Well, you could go look up the Hebrew word for was. You could go look up the Hebrew word for replenish, and you can see that their idea form without form and void. We looked at all the different words that they argued about, and we realized that here's what I would say, even arguing about their interpretation of these Hebrew words, and they're interpreting them, they're not even trying to translate them, really is a foolish argument, and here's the reason why. It needs to be done, and if you see that it's kind of a waste of time, and it's a waste of time in this, because you are arguing to try to disprove a theory that appears in between two verses where there are no words. So you're arguing against a theory that is simply speculation and you're trying to disprove speculation. No, you don't have to disprove speculation. The one speculating has to prove their speculation, and they can't prove it because there's no words there. There's a gap, right? So focus on what's actually in the text. And the best they can do is like, well, see, this word could mean that. Okay, it could mean that, but you still haven't proven to me that the cataclysmic judgment happened between the two verses where there are no words. Please note, that will lead you to missing the revelation. So what is the revelation of Genesis 1? God. That's the So what do you need to make sure you've learned in Genesis 1? You need to learn about God. What he did. What does that teach you about him? If you miss that, you're lost. Your journey through the Bible is done. Your car is, well, we're not taking a car. You've broken both of your legs and you're going to have to be transported back to a field hospital because you're incapable of moving on. You're crippled yourself. We have to see God in the chapter. We have to see God. He becomes central to the rest of the book. All right, I'll stop right there. How long did we go? 1 hour and 30 minutes. I apologize for going so long. I know what you're thinking, man, you did a lot of review. I did a lot of review because I wanted to put it all together in a complete picture, but there you have it. And we spent a lot of time listening to the text being read. So there you have it. All right. I'm going to end by playing the copyright notice for our use of the reading of Genesis chapter 1. And if you have any questions, email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. The reading of the King James Version of the Bible was brought to us from the following.
Thank you for listening to this recording of the King James Bible produced by Audio Scriptures International. Audio Scriptures International believes it is more important to spread the Word of God than to make a large profit. Please feel free to make copies of these recordings and distribute them freely so long as you adhere to the following guidelines. First, you may not charge any more than the cost to duplicate and send them. Secondly, you must make a complete copy of the recording, including this message. For commercial and fundraising distribution, please contact Audio Scriptures International for additional information.